Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Okay, Dr. Khan is here. Our Doug, he has given his proxy to Bill Kennedy. Joyce Edwards, Vicki Green, she's given her proxy to me. Marna Harris, Dr. Jeff Heck,
Here.
Judy Johansson,
No vote.
Billy Kennedy, Michael Lavender, Pat McGinnis,
Here.
Lars Pittman,
On phone.
okay, Judy Poe,
And Joyce said,
Joyce Edwards is on the line too. Okay. Okay, Judy Poe's here. Mandy Stein is giving her proxy to me, and Duncan Saunders. Are you here?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
and Joyce Edwards is on the line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is public comment by Mary Shore.
Hello. So I am Mary Short, and I am from Alexander County, and I am here with Katie, who is an Innovations Waiver participant who does not have a network service provider in place since June 18th. So there would appear to be some sort of access to services, timeliness of services, some sort of reasonable promptness issue going on that nobody is responding to in any way, shape, or form, but that's not really why I'm here. So, this past week, there was a really interesting webinar put on by the National Coalition of Organizations on Aging, and specifically their Disability and Aging Collaborative. And this webinar was about, from a consumer and advocate point of view, was about the new managed care rules. And the speakers on this webinar were from the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, from Justice and Aging, and from the National Health Law Program. It was quite interesting, and the webinar will be available to look at ncoa.org /HCBS webinar. They have a bunch of webinars on that. Anyway, one of the things there were a couple of things that I found particularly interesting. I've looked over these MCO rules even when they were proposed rules. I made public comment on them. So one of the things I wasn't aware of is the rules, apparently, and I didn't write down the number of the section, which they went very quickly. They discussed medically necessary services and the definition. And they talked about that the state MCO contract would define medically necessary services. But in these new MCO rules, apparently it says, and the MCO rules include a PIP, it says that medically necessary services cannot be more restrictive than the state Medicaid program definition of medically necessary services. So that sort of opens up a real interesting can of worms. And then also my favorite part of the new MCO rules, and I wrote this section down, 438.20 parentheses, little letter B, end parentheses. And that has to do with once you receive an adverse benefit determination, that's the new word for action. So an adverse benefit determination, if there's a reduction or termination, then the services actually must continue, if it's requested, must continue regardless of the length of the original service authorization. So that's a really big change. And specifically, the MCO rules were changed because of long-term services and supports. And then also this Justice and Aging as I was getting ready for the webinar, I went to their website, and they have this really great issue brief from May of 2016 called Voluntary Means Voluntary, Coordinating Medicaid HCBS with Family Assistance. And it's a great, great document that sort of confirms everything I've been trying to argue about natural supports being voluntary, and what sort of things that we, advocates and beneficiaries, can do as far as advocating with our states and our MCOs and our PIPs to make sure that the law is actually complied. So again, I sort of want to leave you with the idea that part of the reason there's no service provider agency for Katie is because, Katie has a right to determine who touches her naked body. So we keep sort of bumping it up against that fun little fact of life. But we're now into a, sort of timeliness issue, and, that whole issue of reasonable promptness. So it's getting interesting day by day. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is review and approval of the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from May 26th?
I move we accept the minutes from May 26th. Second.
All right. Motion is second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. At this time, call on Tracy Hayes, General Counsel, CCO. Conflict of interest disclosure.
No new conflicts of interest have been reported. As a reminder, if you have any new actual or potential conflicts of interest related to your service on any other boards or ownership of any other interests, please let me know.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, Consumer and Family Advisory Committee report, Pat McGinnis.
Thank you. Our city